The anemic BC Lions head to Hamilton on Saturday afternoon to face the suddenly hot Ticats. I am joined by the Hamilton Spectator's Drew Edwards, as well as our own Lowell Ullrich. Let's start with LU, who's at his home in North Vancouver. LU, terrible news, of course, Saturday in Calgary when Andrew Harris was carried off the field by numerous teammates. And at that moment, I thought, how can the Lions sort of survive another hit to their offense?
Well, and that's the same feeling that you had when you were watching it live, Jonathan, that's for sure. No team really in any pro football league can expect to lose its starting quarterback in Travis Lulay. It's possession receiver Courtney Taylor, a pass rusher who you can question the validity of him, Khalif Mitchell, now Andrew Harris, Dante Marsh. I mean, these are all key members of an organization that hasn't been able to get it done when they've been together, and now they're all apart, and it remains to be seen how they'll put it together.
I mean, it strikes me that, we often talk about, can the Lions get to the Grey Cup, which of course Vancouver's hosting in November. Now I'm starting to wonder, are they going to slide back behind the Winnipeg Blue Bombers?
Well, it's certainly possible right now. I mean, Winnipeg, a game back going into the play this week. That said, they're only a couple of games behind the Saskatchewan Roughriders, who don't have a quarterback either. Darian Durant out for a good stretch, although there's talk this week that he may come back before the end of the year.
Okay, so they're in Hamilton this weekend, and clearly this is on the defense, even though the defense, you can't ask the defense necessarily to be scoring touchdowns. So if there's one player we should be looking at the Lions to give one some hope, who would it be?
Well, on defense, certainly it has to be Solomon Elimimian, who's had this team on his back, or at least one shoulder, for the bulk of the season. Now he's going to have to carry them on both. But you know what? As much as it sounds dour or dire, that too, with the Lions lately and after the Harris injury, I mean, they still will have a bit of a running game if they get run blocking. Stefan Logan was put into this situation, if you recall, about 5 weeks ago when Harris sat out a game in Toronto. He went for 19 carries, 145 yards, and the Lions won by 16 points on the road against Toronto. Hamilton's a different animal, better pass rush, better defense. But, they're not going to completely fall apart. This key, as always with this team, Jonathan, can they get any offensive line blocking so Kevin Glenn has time to find somebody to throw to?
Those are interesting questions, LU. Let's move on to Hamilton, where we're joined by the Hamilton Spectator's Drew Edwards. Drew, the Ticats are unbeaten in home at Tim Hortons Field. What has led this resurgence?
Well, I think Tim Hortons Field has been excellent for both the team and the fans. It's a great new stadium. It's a pretty cool environment, and I think that's really helped get the team on the right track in many ways. I think also they're just playing better football in the second half of the season than they were in the first half.
Zach Collaros, of course, missed some time. He was out with a concussion. Interestingly enough, the Ticats are 4-1 since his return. Is there something different about the way Collaros has played?
Well, he didn't play much before he got hurt, right? They played in Saskatchewan to start the season, and they lost dramatically, and then he got hurt in the second game of the year. So he was out for quite some time, and I think since he's been back, the team overall has played better. The defense has been absolutely phenomenal, and that certainly helped. And so Collaros has been able to put up decent numbers in a number of those games, but even when he hasn't, like last week in Winnipeg, they were still able to win the game because the defense has played so well. So I think Collaros is more comfortable in Ken Austin's offensive system as well. His first year in that system, and so I think he's just, it's the slow evolution of a young quarterback.
Drew, you mentioned this superb team defense that the Ticats have, and of course you know about the Lions, who are regularly shutting down opposing teams, but they can't seem to score any points. Is this one of those games that's going to be another sort of 2014 CFL game where it's 7-5?
Yeah, look, you would expect that this would be a defensive battle. The Lions, I think, have the best linebacking core in the league and a very experienced veteran secondary, and those two things in combination have given the Ticats trouble this year. So certainly this does look like a defensive struggle. That being said, look, I covered Kevin Glenn for a couple of seasons here in Hamilton, and he's also capable of dropping 450 yards on any given team on any given night. And Collaros has played well on spurts as well. So as much as this leans towards towards a defensive battle. This is still the CFL, and pretty much anything can happen.
I know you're absolutely right about Glenn. We've seen that here. It's just hard to say when it's going to happen. Thanks very much, Drew, and thanks, LU, for joining us. And of course, Friday, the full Blitz package in the pages of the Province and at provincesports.com. LU's live chat, 1 p.m. on Friday afternoon, and of course his weekly CFL picks. He's asked me to brag that he was 4-0 last week, which is incredible in a league where there are just 4 games played, that he should be 4-0. Thanks again, Drew. Thanks, LU.